It's time to talk sports, it's time for the show. When you hear this song on the radio, it's time to tune in, better act fast. Let me get that autograph. Potograph, Sports Talk Radio. Starting now.
Let's go! What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 127 of Let Me Get That Potograph. As always, my name is Drew, or the DH, and joining me today is my squeaky chair that you can always hear, and the one and only Jeremy Lee from Sports Card Live, along with Collectible Live, as well as one of my co-hosts on Hobby Hotline will be joining me a little later today to talk the hobby, the hockey market, some new Upper Deck products such as metal, and a whole lot of other stuff. Great interview coming up. Make sure to stick around and check that out because Jeremy's one of the brightest minds in the hobby, especially from a business and an analytical standpoint. There's really nobody better. Excellent interview coming up later today. So super excited, guys. We've got a jam-packed show. This was going to be out about 4 or 5 days ago, but then some news dropped, obviously, and so we delayed it a couple of days. But the news that dropped, obviously, we're going to kick off with, and that is, Fanatics had their first public statement. Now, I'm calling this news, but I'm putting air quotations around it because, okay, yes, they had their first public statement on TV since everything had come out. This is the first we've heard out of their mouths and not from a press release or something regarding them and their trading card vision for the future. But they said absolutely nothing new. Absolutely nothing that we didn't already expect and really have mapped out, or they hadn't already flat out said in a either at the industry summit or at any of the various times that something was in print. It was stuff that was already known that this is what they were going to be doing, but they announced things such as doing a lot more direct-to-consumer stuff, which sent people up in arms, which we'll touch on here in just a moment. In addition to that, they talked about wanting to be a one-stop shop in terms of also having a secondary market where you can, once you buy the cards and once you've got everything, you'd be able to place them on a marketplace such as an eBay or, one of PWCC's new auction houses if they choose to go more of the high-end route as opposed to every single card around. And then they said they also wanted to get into the grading game, which is something that we're really going to focus on in just a moment because that's what I took the most away from. But basically, they're looking to be what they are for jerseys. They're looking to be what they are for collectibles and everything else that they have. A one-stop shop for everything, and that's what we expected. That's what else did you expect when they got up every single major team license? And you look at how this company's run. Of course, that's their idea and their vision for the future. But of course, immediately, everybody in the hobby freaked out and had a major opinion on everything and acted like this was the first time they'd heard this news. Guys, this isn't new news whatsoever. It's been out there for quite some time that this is the route that was going to be taken. And I've seen so many crazy things, and the first one I want to touch on is with LCSs, saying that this is going to be the death of LCSs and the death of breaking as we know it. No, guys, it's not. Breaking is something that is here to stay in the hobby, and it really is. It's just getting started with what it's going to be. And if you don't think Fanatics sees that, well, I mean, you're crazy. I know Fanatics will have some sort of breaking entity associated with them if it's not under the Fanatics name, which, guys, keep in mind, I don't think for 1 second everything's going to be branded Fanatics, like Fanatics Grading, Fanatics Chrome, Fanatics Prism, and whatever it may be that they choose to have. It's not all going to be branded as Fanatics. It's going to be branded as other stuff, which we're going to touch on in just a moment because I think their grading company already exists. But the whole idea that LCSs are out of business and that they're not going to be able to get anything and this ruins everything, Guys, right now, distribution is the biggest problem. If Fanatics can come in any way, shape, or form and fix distribution so it's not the broken, corrupt, ridiculously pathetic, all the way from hobby to retail, all the way down the board, the distribution process is a complete and total mess. If anything, Fanatics could change this for the better for LCSs, for big-time breaking companies, and things like that, as well as for the customer. If they're not going to do 1000% direct to consumer, there will be some type of method on certain things, whether it be breaking companies, which that is a possibility. Some of these bigger breaker companies could end up getting contracts with Fanatics. It's 1000% possible. We don't know how they're going with this. But also, with LCSs, the Fanatics is not going to come in here, take the hobby, and try and kill what is one of the mainstays of the hobby. But I'd argue right now even that if you're an LCS that's relying solely on distribution to survive, I don't know how you've survived so long to begin with. If you're not an LCS that doesn't participate heavily in selling stuff online, in dealing with the online community, and dealing with other things such as breaking and whatever it may be, if you don't have your hand in that in some way, shape, or form, I don't know how in the world you're staying afloat and at least being incredibly profitable. If you look at all the successful card shops and all the places that are opening successful card shops, they're not relying on their allocations from distribution, because those have been cut across the board. Yes, some people still get great allocations, and that's awesome. And yes, they might have to adapt a little bit, but guess what? They're going to, because there's a reason they've got to the point where they are. It's because they're smart with their business and they adapt with the industry and they know how to take what's given to them and turn it into a way to stay profitable with still providing an affordable service for the hobby. And so the whole LCSs are dead thing, guys, relax. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen whatsoever. And so I also mentioned grading earlier and how Fanatics said they wanted to get into the grading game. And, everyone started to say, oh, great, we're going to have Fanatics 10s and all this. Well, Fanatics already, slabs cards, they don't grade them, but they already encapsulate some of them regardless. So they might do some type of encapsulation service. But in terms of grading, I think their company already exists, and I don't think the name changes. I think the label hopefully changes a little bit, but I think the company already exists and is already gaining a small market share in this industry, and that's CSG. And the reason that I point this out is one of the majority owners in Fanatics is also a majority owner in CSG. So there's already a connection between Fanatics and CSG, and a major one. He is a major decision maker for Fanatics, and he has ownership in CSG. You're seeing CSG, who already has an incredible reputation in the comic industry. You're seeing their slabs start to come out now. Now, this is one slab that truly, I've never seen such a big difference between a photograph and holding it in hand. Holding a CSG slab in hand is honestly one of the nicest slabs I've ever seen. They're so crystal clear. The label doesn't look near as bad as long as it has subgrades on it. It has to have subgrades, in my opinion, right now, at least with the size of the label. But the sheen from the foil label and everything, it's really a beautiful displayed slab. But in my opinion, they do have design work to go. But CSG grades, they grade very tough. They're very tough grades, but they're selling for good money. You're seeing a lot more CSG slabs come onto the market as somebody that does a lot of work with DC Sports. I see a lot of CSG coming through now, and I see a lot of CSG at card shows and in Facebook rooms and everywhere else that I'm in the hobby. You're starting to see a lot more of them. They're getting good resale value, especially for their price, very similar to SGC in terms of how much you're paying to get your card graded, the time frame you're getting it graded in, and the resale value. I think they line up pretty well, although SGC is making a pretty substantial move forward, which is awesome. But I think CSG is one of those companies that is going to continue to show that they have a lot of consistency. That's one thing. If you look at their 10s, if you look at their 9s, you can see where the differences are on all of them. There is a noticeable difference where in the case of some other companies, there isn't that big of a noticeable difference on most of the cards, which sometimes that can be because of surface, but at least with CSG also, you have the option of knowing with subgrades. And as Beckett, just remains quiet and throughout this entire thing, their slabs just seem to be losing quite a bit of value outside of the super high-end cards that were graded about 10 years ago in Beckett slabs. But CSG, I think, is going to be the grading company that Fanatics ultimately pairs up with because they've already got an ownership connection. They've already got everything they need to just partner up. And if they do, I can see CSG slabs making a incredible rise to the top. I have picked up so many of the top rookies and the top guys that I'm looking for in CSG 9.5s and 10s for well under PSA prices or anything comparative to those. And I've been getting them for incredible deals, and I'm doing nothing but stashing them away because I do think that CSG is going to be the grading company that they use. And I think when that happens, I'm not saying they're automatically going to take over the entire world of grading and be the greatest thing in the world. But I think that they're going to see a massive, massive increase in market share and be one of those companies that is up there with who I think will be up there at the time in 5 years, PSA and SGC. So I think they'll be right up there with those two and BGS if they start to make any type of movement whatsoever, they'll still be up there. But I think they're going to have a massive market share, and I think they're going to be that company that comes out of this with Fanatics in terms of grading. So I don't think it's going to be all those doomsday scenarios that I saw, and there were millions of them that I saw, watched on YouTube. So many of these influencers wanted to throw up a video. I use influencers very loosely there, but they threw up videos of just the death of the hobby, doomsday, blah, blah, blah. No, guys, just sit back. Let's see what happens. It's going to be different. You're going to have to adapt in some way, shape, or form. 1,000%. But it's not going to be all online. There's going to be places to be able to get it in hand, just like always. There's going to be a retail aspect to everything. It's all going to be there. So just calm down and do what I always say in this hobby. Adapt, adjust, and you're going to be fine. But y'all, now it's time to move on to the news segment that has taken the nation by storm. It might get, who knows, it might get a show one day as well, just like Let Her Rip, but it's not Let Her Rip. It is Movers and Shakers. All right, and for today's Movers and Shakers, we've got a couple of guys from a couple of different sports that I think are great buys right now and should see a substantial rise in the next couple weeks, even all the way down to a couple of months down the line. We're going to first start off with a couple of guys playing in the postseason right now. It is postseason baseball time. And I think, it's going to have a lot to do with how they finish out a couple of these series. But Austin Riley, in particular for the Atlanta Braves, is somebody that I think is an absolutely incredible buy. The dude had yet another amazing year. He's never rebounded from having a lot of hype and not living up to it right away. It took him a little bit of time to get there, but he's there and he's in the top discussion as one of the best players in the National League, period. Not only on the Braves. I mean, he's definitely not the best player on the Braves, but he's right up there. And there's arguments that can be made that he may indeed be the best. I just don't personally think he is, but his cards are so incredibly undervalued that Austin Riley is a wonderful buy to me. despite what happens in the series, if Atlanta doesn't move on past the Brewers, I still think that might even be a better time to buy. But, I still think buying right now at this moment before what I think is going to be an Atlanta run that goes pretty deep, then I think you're going to see a massive increase in Austin Riley's prices. So he's someone I would either grab right now or plan on grabbing in the postseason. But if Atlanta goes far, grabbing him in the postseason is going to be too late, because if they make it deep and can even get to the World Series, Austin Riley cards are going to absolutely skyrocket, because he's going to be one of the main reasons that they get there. And that might just ignite the fire that collectors had for him at one time before it took him a little while to get to where he is now. So Austin Riley is first up on my list. And one other guy that's in the postseason right now in baseball that I think really suffered the same exact thing, except for on a grander scale, and that's Trey Turner. When Trey Turner's rookie class came out, when it was his rookie year, he was one of the top rookies. He was one of the guys that you were chasing after, but yet again, he started off good, but nothing absolutely incredible, no amazing, huge run that really took off, and then after that, it still never came. This year, Trey Turner's in the MVP discussion. He will be, he's going to be a finalist for a lot of different awards. I think Trey Turner's cards are severely undervalued, again, just like Austin Riley, no matter what happens in the postseason. I think Trey Turner has finally turned that corner to where he's going to be putting up these types of numbers every year, which if he does and can have a long career and doesn't get hampered by injuries or anything along those lines, can put up Hall of Fame numbers. Trey Turner can easily be a Hall of Fame player, and his rookies right now aren't selling for near what other players that aren't putting up half the stats he is. So, where their cards are. So, to me, Trey Turner is an absolute no-brainer if you're looking for some guys in the postseason to grab right now, or if they don't make it to the World Series and their teams actually bow out early, they're both two of the best buys in the offseason, as I think they're headed towards monster years next year as well. Next up on my list is we're going to football here, and a rookie that is showing me that he is going to be an absolute superstar, and some are arguing he already is, but Najee Harris for the Steelers. The Steelers are having a rough year, and Big Ben, he's going to be moving on. They might go through a little transitional period unless they just tank a season and end up with a great quarterback or trade for a great quarterback once Big Ben's gone. But, they've got to retool some things around them. But Najee Harris is an absolute superstar. They are set at running back. This kid is 1,000% legit. And I see all the money that's being put on a lot of other running backs and a lot of other players right now, and a lot of quarterbacks that, if you're looking at it, there's so many new quarterbacks that are going to be great all in this same time period. There's going to be that tier of quarterbacks, obviously, because they can't all win Super Bowls. They're going to be beating each other, just like Mahomes and Herbert. I think if you're collecting both of them, I think it's crazy if you're collecting both of them heavily for long term. I just think because they're going to be beating each other a lot. So I think it's pick one. But when you're looking at Najee Harris, and I see people putting money on a lot of other running backs outside of Christian McCaffrey, I think he's the safest one to put money on, as he's going to have a legendary career, I think. A lot of bias here as a Panther fan. Keep pounding. But Najee Harris is an absolute superstar, way undervalued, so he is definitely on this week's Movers and Shakers. And to round out this week's edition of Movers and Shakers, we're going to take a dip into basketball, but next week we're going to be doing our major basketball edition of Movers and Shakers. But one guy I got to get you on before it's too late. It's Nikhil Alexander-Walker. I've been talking about this dude for a long time, but I cannot stress this enough. Before the season starts, get some Nikhil in your collection. This dude is going to lead a team with Zion, get a ton of attention, and he's going to end up being the second superstar on that team. This kid is capable of max money one day, especially with the contracts they're handing out to players these days. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, insane buy in this hobby. He is absolutely, positively at that near the top, if not at the top of my list of NBA players to buy this year. As I said, we're going to take a deep dive into a lot of players that I think are going to have an excellent year on next week's episode of Movers and Shakers, but I wanted to focus especially on Nikhil right now because if you wait too long, this is one of those guys that it's not going to take long for people to notice. He's going to be putting up some crazy numbers quick, especially with Zion, his assists, the doubles that Zion's going to be getting. He's going to be getting open. The kid can flat out shoot. He can control the floor. He's going to be the general of that team. So Nikhil Alexander-Walker rounds out this week's edition of Movers and Shakers. And welcome back, everybody, to Let Me Get That Potograph. And on the line with us today, we've got our very special guest. I'm so stoked to finally get a chance to meet him and have him on the show. He is the host of Sports Cards Live and, of course, the new Collectible Live show, Mr. Jeremy Lee. What's up, buddy?
Hey, brother. Great to be back with you again, actually. Right?
Yes, that was a joke, everybody that doesn't watch Hobby Hotline. Jeremy and I obviously co-host Hobby Hotline together, but it's great to have you on, man. It's been a while since you've been on the show, so glad to have you back on. Let me get that potograph where it all started for me.
I appreciate it, Drew. It's great to be here. Always good to hang out with you, dude.
So we finally got a chance to meet at the National. One of my biggest takeaways was how big and tall you were. That shocked me. As you can see, also guys, anytime you guys are watching Hobby Hotline or anything, you see the Sports Card Live sticker and Jeremy's face in the background. So always putting that up for everybody to see. But I wanted to have you on today, man, for a couple of different reasons. One, I know you're a diehard hockey collector, and two, last week we touched on alternative entry methods into the hobby, different ways that you can collect and be involved nowadays, and you have a very special connection to that. So I want to touch on that just a little bit later, but I want to start off today just talking about the hockey market in general, and really, in my opinion, the release of the year, the return of the year, and some of the most beautiful cards I've ever seen in my life. And that, of course, everyone knows what I'm talking about now. And that is, of course, 2020-2021 Metal Universe Hockey. What were your thoughts when you saw that Metal Universe was coming back to the hobby and it was hockey?
Well, dude, I had a bit of a early warning on this because, I'm pretty tight with Billy over at Upper Deck, who is the product manager on this product. Mm-hmm. And I was privileged enough to actually help out with some of the creative ideas on the product and kind of planning it a little bit. Nothing too much for certain, but I was talking to him about, 12, 14 months ago about the product, and he would solicit me for some ideas and bounce ideas off me. So I have been, asking Upper Deck to bring back a Fleer or Skybox brand for a long time because I just felt that the time was right to bring it back to hockey. And it made sense that Metal Universe would be the brand. Yes. And so when Billy actually said to me, hey, we're going to do it, we're going to do Metal Universe, I was like, oh, dude, that's amazing. I cannot wait. Now, originally I thought we're only going to have to wait till April. We didn't know that it would be delayed because of all the, the printing backups in the pipeline there. But when it finally came out, I was just so excited for it. And I've opened a few boxes myself, singles, and I just think it's a great product, and they did a great job this year.
No, I agree. So that's actually surprising. I also knew quite a bit ahead of time that it was coming out, but I definitely had no hand whatsoever in how it was released. Can you expand on that just a little bit? Even a minute role like that. I mean, even if it's something minuscule and something small, having a hand, in my opinion, bringing back one of the most iconic sets of all time. I mean, that's got to be pretty cool and one of those bucket list hobby things for you.
Totally, dude. Yeah, there's one specific thing that I really feel that that I had a hand in. So if you look at the precious metal gems, and I'm going to show you the one just because I know we're on camera right now, but
right.
So this card here, the precious metal gems, this is a green, and it's got the green kind of border, but then it's also got the background that is sort of the planet look.
Yeah.
So originally, I remember Billy said to me, he goes, listen, what we want to do is we want it to be green, but we want to keep the inside the same as the base card, the inside background the same as the base card. What do you think? Do you think it should be that, or do you think we should, because it was going to cost them extra money to make it green?
Of course.
I said, no. You have to spend that money and make it green. The precious metal gems need to be that color. They need to have as much of that color as possible on the surface of the card. So now we see the final product. They did that because I said, no, spend it. You have to do it. And they did that. And so, I mean, listen, I'm not sitting here taking credit for it, but I think that I helped push them in that direction, and I'm very happy I did.
Well, and I'm very happy you did, because precious metal gems, let's be honest, whether it be basketball, any sport in the entire world, even football, precious metal gems, I mean they're iconic, and the one thing about them is that full color. Relaunching a product like this, especially with their tinge in nostalgia, and we'll touch on everything on that in just a moment, you know, I think you have to have that. You know, you have to spend that extra money. Otherwise, I think people would look at precious metal gems and say, well, those aren't the precious metal gems we know. Now they're just a parallel. So kudos to you, brother. I don't know how much impact I had in the room, but thank you for bringing that up, because I own a couple PMGs now, and they are absolutely stunning. But yeah, I had been wanting them to bring something back like that for a long time. And then, of course, you hear the news that, of course, Carvin's over there. We know that, responsible for one of the, if not the most iconic release of all time. But then you have Gene McLeod coming in. Then, for those unaware, Gene is who actually created and designed the original metal basketballs and everything along those lines. This was her concept, her idea. Obviously, she works with some artists and things like that, but this was her baby. And she had been gone for quite some time. And, you know, bringing her back and then doing this release, I'm so glad they were able to get her to come back, because honestly, I don't want anyone else touching it. This is her baby, and I think, you know, now was the right time, and it was just a perfect storm that created just an amazing product, top to bottom.
Yeah, so couple things there. Yeah, so that they announced that they were bringing Gene McLeod back at the National. That's where they made the announcement. So she actually wasn't a part of this product that just came out.
Right.
She'll be hopefully a part of of next year's and other products that they're making. But yeah, like you said, Drew, she was there in the 90s working for Fleer and Skybox, designing many of the iconic inserts that we chase hard and covet and assign a large value to today. So, 20 years off, basically. She's back in the game. She's actually contracted by Upper Deck. She works with her husband, Earl, and together they form Arena Design. And it's what an amazing kind of story, you know, where she's back, and she was at the National. I don't know if you got a chance to meet her.
I did. Yeah. I did. Oh, yes.
Yeah. She's so excited to be back, and she's really, the cool thing is that she's just so almost like flattered by the fact that the hobby loves what she did 20 years ago.
Yeah, I have a feeling she had that she didn't think this was going to be a hit almost. The way I talked to her and the way I hear her response is that she didn't think this was going to be what it is today.
No, and she'll tell you that nobody thought it was going to be what it is today.
Yes.
Right? But you're right. Yeah, she didn't think it was going to be like this. as far as what the PMGs from 97 go for now, among other designs that she did.
Yeah, Jambalaya.
Yeah,
I
that's her.
mean, just so many.
Yeah. It's just really cool to have her back. She's a lovely lady. I had her as a guest on my show last month, and she's passionate about sports cards.
Yes,
she's really happy.
is.
Yeah, she's happy to be back. So I think we as a hobby are really fortunate that she's still out there, doing what she's doing and willing to come back. And then, when I knew that she was coming back, but I didn't know who it was going to be with right away. And then when I found out it was going to be Upper Deck, I thought, well, that's great for me because I collect hockey as my number one. And hey, that's what Upper Deck has a license in. So I'm going to be pretty fortunate. But she is also going to be working on their Metal Universe Champions, which is going to be the multi-sport product. So, fans of other sports as well, myself included, are going to be able to reap those benefits. But I think as time goes by, she'll likely be working on some hockey products. And so I think the hockey community is going to benefit the most at this point in time from her coming back.
She truly is a wonderful lady. And, I love the nod that they did to for, doing the throwback set and everything, because there's a video out where she describes, how they made the original Fleer metal, and her attention to detail and wanting to create cards with these different backgrounds that had to represent certain things. Like it was so focused and so beautiful. It's just an amazing video, and it really shows that incredible just love of sports and cards that she does have. So you mentioned obviously that you're a major hockey collector, and obviously metal, huge release this year, but not only metal. We've had lots of very big releases. We've got very lucky the last few years. Hockey's kind of undergoing the football time of the changing of the guard, where some of the older guys are kind of not done, but, on their way out, but a lot of new young guys that are really coming in, and, that's nothing but great for the hobby. So when you look at the hockey hobby in general, the hockey market, in an era where, so much is happening right now, I personally have seen an absolute explosion in it. But from someone that is so in tune with it, what's your feel on the modern hockey market right now?
I mean, I like it. One of the things I like is, one of the things I do as a hockey collector is I try to see what's happening and what's popular in other sports, and try to figure out like what's Upper Deck going to do to maybe capture some of that excitement. And we obviously know that in basketball, football, you've got Prism, you've got all the parallels, and people love a lot of the parallels. A lot of people say there's too many. I get that as well, for sure. So in hockey, we have every year O-Pee-Chee Platinum, which is a beautiful chromium set with several parallels, not nearly as many as you see in Prism products. Yeah. But some really nice parallels, beautiful, that have been appearing every year really since like 2015. So you're seeing the same one, which I think is a great thing, because then that parallel brand develops its own equity, and people might want the Emerald Surge every year, or the Gold Seismic every year, right? So the Orange Checkers, all that sort of thing. So it's exciting. There seems to be more and more Instagram posts with hockey cards, which makes me excited. I think it's catching on more and more. And I think that, the thing about non-hockey collectors, when they do make their way over to hockey cards, they start where they should. Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, though that's kind of the triumvirate right now.
Nathan McKinnon. No,
yeah, you're right. Actually, good call out there, Drew, because Nathan McKinnon to me he's right up there with Connor McDavid as best in the league right now. So, you've got Crosby and Ovechkin, they've been in the league for over 15 years.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Legends. And
they're legends. They are all-time greats. No doubt about it. They will never be forgotten. But then you got McDavid, who's got all the talent, and you got McKinnon too. So I think those two guys with Austin Matthews and a few others are kind of the change of the guard type players, as you mentioned. Connor McDavid and McKinnon are already there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. So I'm excited for the modern hockey hobby. We've also got a product that I know you are, if you don't mind me bringing it up, was Allure, another chromium product with some nice parallels. I'm a guy that likes I like numbered cards. I like a numbered parallel. I also love cool looking inserts, but my favorite, Drew, is a parallel of an insert. To me, that's the sweet spot, right? Where you can have an insert and a parallel of an insert. To me, that's kind of the sweet spot, and that's where I tend to focus. So Allure has that.
Yes.
Metal Universe has that. O-Pee-Chee Platinum has that. So yeah, I like it, man. I'm excited for the modern hockey hobby.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think I think there's a lot going for it, and hockey's always one of those things. I grew up playing it, so obviously grew up watching it, and that's all I collected really as a kid, even as I played other sports. But, it's one of those things I tell people all the time. Watch 1 or 2 hockey games and you're hooked. And, you see people jump in, whether it be at price points at other sports where hockey, has, it's gone up, but it is not, gone ridiculous like a lot of other places have. So it's almost forced some people that are in the industry to get into it. But what I've noticed is a lot of them are staying. They're not leaving. The hockey market, to me, seems incredibly strong. And like you said, when you see I call it the changing of the guard, when the young guys coming in and all of that, in terms of also you've got living legends playing right now. The last 2 years have been some of the most exciting years of hockey that we've had probably since the Avs Red Wings rivalry era of the time. But what do you see in terms of the future of the hockey market and in terms of rookies? Like, if you had to name somebody and some guys that you're high on right now, some of the young guys that might surprise some people, give us some names from the brain of Jeremy Lee here.
Okay. I'm going to do this, but I have to qualify this answer, Drew, by saying that I'm not a collector who really hones in and prospects on young players.
Right.
So I'm going to go by the players that I do like. I think they have some fun. Collecting them is fun. So, there's the obvious guys that we've already mentioned. I also like Matthew Barzal on the New York Islanders.
Yes.
I think he's a great player. I think Jack Eichel, he's got some issues in Buffalo, but if he finds the right environment, I think he's going to be an absolute stud. It doesn't take a genius to tell you that David Pastrnak on the Boston Bruins is one of the best goal scorers in the league, if not the best.
Yep.
And then a couple of, maybe further stretches. I really like these 2 young kids in Carolina, of all places, being Sebastian Aho and Evgeny Svechnikov. I like both of those young players. Vancouver's got some great players too. Elias Pettersson. He's got all the tools to be a superstar. So, Chicago's got a couple young guys. The hobby seems to like this Kirby Dach. I don't see it yet, but he might, who knows? But Alex DeBrincat, who's also there, looks to be really good. So, another guy who, because of the market he plays in, doesn't get much love. Now, he's not that young anymore, but he's still a great player, is Alexander Barkov.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He's really
100%.
good. And then in Tampa Bay, you've got Braden Point, who's an absolute stud. So you've got players throughout the league who, I think, and of course in Toronto, you've got Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner.
Right.
They can only do better than they did last year.
Yeah.
So, right. They were such a failure, and especially in the playoffs last year, that any success in the playoffs this year for that team will mean good things for them. And I can't leave out the Montreal Canadiens superstar rookie who made his debut in the playoffs last year, Cole Caufield.
Yes. Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. So, Kyle Connor in Winnipeg, a great player, sort of under the radar because Winnipeg is just stacked up front. But Kyle Connor, he's a great player too. So, there's a healthy list there.
Yeah.
Miro Heiskanen for defenseman. Miro Heiskanen in Dallas, I think has a ton of potential. And then of course, Cale Makar in Colorado and Charlie McAvoy in Boston too.
Cale Makar, I love that answer. I love Cale. I think he's gonna do big things. But hockey market I definitely think is in one of the best times of its life, and I think we're gonna see a very, very strong growing period here in the next few years. But wanted to transition a little bit, and when you're opening up hockey, you can open up some blasters of metal, you can open up some other things, and then you can open up products like the cup, where you can pull some, $20,000-$50,000 cards that, you might not be able to get your hands on. You might not be able to get your hands on a box of. But one thing that we did discuss last week was a lot of the new ways to get into the hobby. Like it used to be, hey, let's head to the LCS. Let's grab a pack of cards. You're not doing that with the cup. You're not doing that with these types of cards. Nowadays, we've got eBay, you've got other marketplaces, you've got different apps for breaking like Whatnot, which I use quite often as a seller. And then you also have the fractional share ownership, which I know you have a very close connection with Collectible, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. And guys, if you haven't checked out our live with Collectible, we had a really awesome live episode of Let Me Get That Potograph where we dove deep into it. I highly recommend checking it out on the page. But, when you look at, we'll take fractional share ownership in just a moment, but when you look at all the new ways to get into the hobby, what does that tell you about the strength of our hobby or just how you feel about the hobby when you see all these new ways for people to enter?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's such a great question because it has a great answer. And it's basically, I see a great future. I see a healthy future because I'm not alone in that, right? Obviously, when you have all these really innovative, young, ambitious entrepreneurs building these businesses, and then they are finding financing from pretty smart people, that tells me that there's a lot of people that believe in this hobby, this industry. So right there, I think it's, I'm very bullish on the hobby. Drew, I've been bullish on the hobby my whole life.
Right.
And now I feel like I'm not alone anymore. Obviously there were others, but now it's becoming just much more of a viable place for capital to be deployed into the infrastructure. And what you're talking about is really the infrastructure of the hobby, and the infrastructure is being built out as we speak. We got the eBay marketplace, and you had ComC. Tim did such a great job building out ComC, right? He's an early innovator in the hobby. And now you've got many others. You got the fractionals, you've got the live streaming like Whatnot that you mentioned. I'm a big fan of Whatnot. And of course, there seems to be 3 or 4 fractional companies. And as you mentioned, I do work with Collectible. I'm a big fan of those guys. And so, yeah, I'm just really excited about the future. That's how it makes me feel.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mentioned it a little bit last week, especially there was an article on investor.com that came out that kind of really broke down in a numbers way of just how the hobby's going. And I mean, you've got companies like Visa is literally getting into the card game, the sports memorabilia game. I mean, it's truly, truly changing. And, so many different avenues because let's face it, so many people love sports. So many people love this, but they might not want to hold the card. They might not want to, but they might want to be involved in the industry. Well, now you can. Now you can do this. There's money-making opportunities. It's turning into its own asset class, in my opinion. Like it truly is, and I think it will be. And like you said, that infrastructure is being built out in such an incredible way, and that in my opinion, along with distribution, were the 2 biggest issues that the hobby really had. The infrastructure was so simple, it was so minimal, and then the distribution was just kind of all out of whack. And now we're really getting the infrastructure of the hobby down to the point where so many people from so many avenues of life are able to dive in and enjoy this hobby. And a lot of them are staying, getting into other areas. And all I can do is bring the hobby up. And that's why, I'm like you, I'm someone that's very optimistic about the future. I don't think it's all going to be roses and everything, I mean, obviously there will be ebbs and flows like anything, but in terms of where we're going, I see these companies like fractional share ownerships, which I want to touch on now, really being essential in that infrastructure. And one of my favorites, as I've tested out quite a few of them, is the company that you work with. And that's why I wanted to discuss it with you today. And that's Collectible. And I love their platform, and I love what they do. And I think if I'm looking at all these companies and looking at all these things that are popping up, Collectible is a company I'm looking at and say, okay, this is the company that's doing it right, and this is a company that's here to stay for the long haul.
Yeah, no, for sure, dude. That's exactly the thing. Now, I've met people from a few of the different fractional ownership companies, and I have nothing bad to say about any of them. But I do have some good things to say, some special good things to say about Collectible. Because the number one thing I want to say about these guys, first of all, they're a great group of guys. They really are. I've been dealing with about, I don't know, it feels like 6 or 8 different people from there on a regular basis now, and they're just a wonderful group of people. But what they're doing that I really like the most, their approach is basically to grow the hobby and grow the pie, and that seems to be their number one goal and motivation. And I think that they realize that by doing that, that will mean good things for their business. But they're looking to build the hobby first and foremost. And I think that I commend them for that. So when you speak about fractional itself, though, and where its place is in the hobby, when it first was kind of announced that there was going to be this new segment, which was really about a year ago or so, and it started really sort of catching on. A lot of traditional hobbyists would say out loud, well, it's not for me. I want to hold these cards. I don't want to just own a piece of it. That doesn't mean the same to me. And my approach was always, well, it's not like these things aren't mutually exclusive. You don't have to do one or the other. You can still own cards. And if you have some extra money, you can maybe invest some money into fractional ownership as well in sports cards and memorabilia. And so to me, that's an important sort of it's an important thing to consider, that you don't have to do one or the other. Right. It gives guys like me, and I'm guessing yourself, the ability to own a piece of an item, a collectible, a sports card that we would otherwise not have the opportunity to own. Maybe a PSA 8 Mickey Mantle 52 Tops, or a Honus Wagner if they ever get one of those, and all sorts of really wonderful or very exclusive, unique items like a Muhammad Ali championship belt. Yes. Right? Like a Tiger Woods game used putter. That thing is they've got just some fantastic items on their platform. And once they IPO them, a little while later, you can those shares trade on the secondary market, and then somebody can come from the outside and make an offer to buy a buyout offer to buy the whole thing, and all the shareholders get to vote. So I think it's fun as well. Yeah. And it's also important because it is actually providing a market now for a lot of big items that there's just not right. Like, they become customers. They become people who can now monetize these items, where oftentimes there might not be enough people who can afford it to bid it up to get those values up there. So I think to a degree, it's helping elevate the hobby overall in terms of some of these all-time highs. And I think it's reasonable. I mean, just because something is selling, it's like that old saying, it's worth more than the sum of the parts sort of thing, right? So it's going to sell for more when you fractionalize it. And there are fees involved, of course. It's a business. They have to make some money. But at the end of the day, we're seeing all these new comps on these items. And another cool piece is that when a buyout offer is tendered to the company and the shareholders vote against it, you have this new data point that I don't know that we as a hobby are really considering it yet. I think there's going to be a data set called buyout offers that were not accepted, or some form of those words. And now it's going to be like, well, hey, there's no recent comp for this item. Maybe there's no recent comp for this Michael Jordan PMG Green from 1997, but there was a buyout offer that wasn't accepted that was tendered for $1.5 million. I'm making this up, of course. Right. So is that a recent comp? Does that indicate the value of an item? So I mean,
that was also voted on by a collective whole in the hobby. That's I completely agree with you. I think that the best thing that this has done is, let's face it, when Brady cards in a couple of years start to go, I mean, they already are starting, but for millions and millions of dollars, without companies like this, what's that true market? You know what I mean? Like when you're trying to move it, and how many places are there to sell? I mean, yes, there are a lot of very, very wealthy people in the hobby now, and Brady might be a bad example, but if you take all of those massive, cards and all of these massive sales, that pool of people diminishes quicker than ever. You put something up like fractional ownership. I think this is a wonderful way for people to be involved in these high-end cards, but also keep the market moving at a steady pace, at a daily pace of these massive ideas. And I love your idea of the data points. That is brilliant. And there needs to be a new comp system. There needs to be, other ways to just comp something instead of, hey, go to this website and see what something sold for. Oh, wait, 20 of them have been relisted. You just neglected to see that. It would be great to have more data, because the more data and the more information we have, obviously, the more well-informed decisions we can make. So that's really where I see fractional share ownership in this industry having a significant, I was someone that was very skeptical. I put a little money in, and then I found myself really adding to it, and it's become almost a game. It's a lot of fun. But at the same time, I look at it and I say, this is really keeping that high-end market moving. It's public. You can see it. I mean, it's from, like you said, it could be from super wealthy collectors all the way down to someone who puts $30 in a week, $10 in a week. I think that of all the alternate, entryways into the hobby nowadays, and all the, non-LCS ways, fractional ownership is the one thing that I think is going to have the biggest impact on the overall hobby.
I do too, man. I think you said it well there in terms of, the liquidity that it's providing to high-end items, right? Mm-hmm. It's providing it outside of your traditional auction house, and it's just opening it up to so many more people instead of, that PSA 9 52 tops Mickey Mantle that sold to Rob Go, who's I know, an actor, I believe. Mm-hmm. That it makes many of us feel like, oh, so you need to be a Hollywood superstar in order, or a professional athlete to afford these certain items. Well, if you want to buy 100% of the equity in that item, maybe you do, or just a very successful business person, whatever it may be. But now anybody with, their shares are usually $5 or $10. So you can buy in and enjoy the pride of ownership of some very rare exclusive items, and also enjoy the and it's not all ups. You can enjoy the ups and downs as that item the value of those items go along their merry way throughout the next several years. So I think fractional is, and fractional itself is not a new concept. No. Fractional, right? I mean, fractional has been around for timeshares and fractional ownership, So I worked in fractional real estate for 6 years in the late 00s, early 2010s. And it's the way that things are that certain assets are monetized and traded. So think about it this way, Drew. Every share of every company on the stock market is a fractional ownership of that company.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's not new. It's just newer in sports cards. And once, I was about to say, once the hobby accepts it more broadly, it might do better. Yes. But I don't know that these guys need the hobby to accept it, because there's enough new entrants coming in who will see this as, hey, listen, I'm not a collector. I don't want to curate a collection and have to store them and worry about insurance or safety deposit boxes. I like holding my stocks. I like looking at my screen at my portfolio. This is perfect for me. And that's the thing. I think it's perfect for so many people. It's totally not perfect for many traditional collectors. And then there's guys like you and me who are hybrids that are willing to do both.
Yeah, no, absolutely perfectly well said. So, Jeremy, before I let you go, man, as I mentioned, you do have your show Sports Card Live, and you have started working with Collectible. Let everybody know a little bit about your new show with Collectible, how they can find it, and of course, Sports Cards Live.
Thanks, Drew, man. I appreciate the opportunity. Well, I'll get Sports Cards Live out of the way. That's obviously the show I've been doing for a year and a half or more now, Saturday nights on the YouTube channel called Sports Cards Live. And every Saturday night, I bring on guests and we have interviews. I bring on industry insiders, passionate collectors, and content creators. Been enjoying doing that. It's been a great ride. And the second show I'm doing now, which we started at the beginning of September, we just did episode 4 yesterday, is called Collectible Live. And that is on the Collectible YouTube channel, which is, if you go to youtube.com/collectible app, Collectible app, that'll take you to their YouTube channel. And they wanted me to do it in the spirit of Sports Cards Live. So the first couple of episodes, I had a format, a structure that we kind of came up with. And to be honest, I've abandoned that pretty much altogether. Yeah. Abandoned it altogether. It was too much of me just kind of reading the news, if you will. And I didn't feel so natural doing it. So I reached out to the guys at Collectible. I said, I think I'm going to change this up because this isn't really my style. So we're going to change it up. And so now the last 2 episodes, and last night's was really the one where I feel like I came out of my shell in this, if you will. And I had Carvin Chung on.
I agree.
Very good friend of mine. It's really now it's an interview show. But we are taking certain portions of the show and talking about the upcoming IPOs on Collectible. And then for a few minutes, we're going to talk about some of the items that are trading on their secondary market platform in the secondary market, to just sort of talk about some of the trends that are happening on the platform. So it's less structured than it was in the first 2 episodes. I'm much more comfortable doing it. And I'm excited for it, man. I mean, I got to tell you, Drew, I've been doing the Sports Cards Live for quite some time now. And when Collectible approached me and said, here's what we want, and, they approached me and said, here's what we'd like you to do. I said to my wife, I feel like I've been auditioning for a year and a half without knowing it. And I just got my first role,
Yeah.
So I didn't even realize I was auditioning. So it was just the coolest feeling and the best validation I think I really could have asked for from them. And so it's really important for me now to do right by them and produce and be a host a really entertaining show for them.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I always tell people when they ask about shows and everything is I've started and done quite a few, is they're always evolving organisms, and eventually you find that sweet spot where they need to be. And I do agree. Last episode with Carvin Chung, guys. Carvin Chung, if you do not know, is responsible for some of your favorite and most iconic basketball cards of all time. So definitely check that episode out as well. But I think you guys really knocked it out of the park, and I love the new show. From one friend to another, man, you've been knocking it out of the park with Sports Card Live, After Hours, and now Collectible. Really proud of everything that's been going on in the hobby, and just keep up the awesome work, man.
Oh, dude, that means a lot coming from you. You're an OG, and I appreciate that. So thanks a lot. And I forgot to mention Collectible Live. We stream that live Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, just before NFL football.
There you go. Perfect time. Sundays. And of course, Saturdays, you got your Sports Card Live. So everybody, please tune into those shows. Excellent shows, as always. Amazing guests. And Jeremy's wealth of knowledge in this hobby is second to none. But Jeremy, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. Hope to get to see you soon. But it's always a pleasure, man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. You having me on tonight.
And once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Jeremy Lee for dropping in. One of my favorite guys in the hobby, and tallest in the hobby. Holy cow, when I met him, I was like, whoa, didn't know you were that tall, dude. But one of the absolute best in the hobby, and proud to do a show with him, proud to know him and call him a friend. And, his work on Sports Card Live and Collectible Live are just extraordinary. He's got a great interview presence around him. As I said in the intro, incredible knowledge on the hobby for from decades of experience. And, you know, when it comes to especially things like hockey, there's not many people with as much knowledge as Jeremy. So love to have him on the show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. It's always a pleasure when I can have Jeremy on or be on any of his shows, as it's always a blast. But thanks again, Jeremy, for coming on. But guys, we are about to wrap up the show. But before I did, right before I came on the air to record, I saw this comment and it just drives me crazy. And I wanted to just mention it just for a second. And that's that I saw somebody say, so what is everybody doing now that the card market has crashed? Okay, dude, the only people that should think the card market has crashed are people that bought in at the very peak and got in right when it was at its peak and did not collect before then. Sure, then your market's absolutely crashed, but I mean, what are you getting in at the peak for anyway? I mean, did anyone in their right mind expect the absolute astronomical insanity that we saw to continue to happen forever to every single card? Of course not. It's a market. It ebbs and flows. But the market settled back down to a new norm, which is significantly higher. And if you were anywhere in collecting whatsoever before that spike, your cards are 10 times more valuable than they were before at least. And if you had some nice cards, 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 times more valuable. So let's not act like, you know, this new norm is some terrible thing. But even in this new quote-unquote norm, you're starting to see it rise yet again. The market is rising yet again. Certain markets have gone down some, but guess what? In the off seasons of those markets, when the new ones start to pop out and the new hot products of other products come out, guess what? There's a dip. There always has been. Hello? I mean, I don't understand this from people. Yes, it dipped from the massive explosion before. And guess what? You're going to see some more massive explosions in the hobby. It might not be the entire industry, but there are going to be markets where you're going to see astronomical increases in everything. Look at Bowman Prospects right now with Bowman Chrome just dropping. Market is up 1,000% at least on cards being sold, on total transactions, on total price, on everything. Watch when Optic Retail comes out. Watch some of those super short prints, things along those lines. Watch a lot of this stuff, this new stuff that's coming out here in the next couple of weeks. Some of the big name products in some big sports, football and basketball. Football, one of the hottest markets right now. Just wait until Mosaic and all that stuff comes out for basketball and football. All that stuff is right around the corner. You're going to see massive jumps in those industries and in those sectors at that time, and then they're going to settle a little bit, but it's a continued rise. That's the thing. When it quote unquote settles, it's settling at a higher base as before. The market is doing great overall. The hobby is doing better than ever. I mean, you can't say because something spiked for 6 months that was a massive, great, amazing time period in the industry. No, it was a 6-month spike. But including that or even excluding that and looking at it from 4 years ago, the hobby is in the best time it has ever been at. It's only getting bigger. It's only getting better. So stop with the market has crashed nonsense. It hasn't. You just aren't paying attention, or you got in at the very, very, very high end or right at the peak of an astronomical explosion, which if that's the case, please don't get into stocks or Bitcoin or any of that stuff. But guys, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Let Me Get That Potograph. Once again, I'd like to thank my very special guest, Mr. Jeremy Lee, for joining the show. Always, always a pleasure. And guys, got a lot of really cool stuff coming out. Monday, October 11th, I will be doing a live special with Card Killer, which will be live on Facebook Live and YouTube, so make sure to check that out as well. couple days right after this is released. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about custom art and a lot of other really cool stuff. In addition to that, as always, Let Her Rip every single Wednesday at 9:30. Make sure to check it out. Hobby Hotline every single Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And of course, could not do this show without you, so gotta give you guys an awesome shout out, of course, to all of our sponsors: Vanity Slabs, Walk-Off Submissions, Card Ladder, Doghouse, and Vintage Breaks, which Vintage Breaks right now, guys, has their fall ball promo going on, with a chance to really get some awesome stuff, including a PSA 10 Shohei Ohtani rookie update pink refractor with a pop of under 200 still out of 2018. And then they've got some awesome other stuff, including a Mantle PSA 2.5 for their Platinum VIP promo. So many amazing things going on over at Vintage Breaks. It ends October 17th, but all new members that sign up before October 17th ends at 10 p.m. All new users get $15 break credit, and every single spot that you buy from now until then, you are automatically entered into the Fall Ball Buy Any Spot giveaway, where, like I said, the winner gets an Ohtani, second place is a Mantle SGC 6, so many incredible prizes, over 30 some prizes total being given out during their Fall Ball event, which is going on now through October 17th, so make sure to check it out at event.vintagebreaks.com. And make sure to make that account and get that free $15 break credit. But thanks so much to all of our sponsors. We could not do this without you guys, and greatly appreciate it. And looking forward to the next few weeks, guys. Got a lot of really fun stuff coming up. Some stuff that I think you're going to absolutely love. So looking forward to it. But until next time, you guys know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits. We'll talk to you next week. Peace!